Mm. Let's see. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I show that it is 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so I will go ahead and call to order the 2023 Delegate Assembly of the American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges. I welcome the members of the Assembly and guests. Your mic will be muted until you are recognized to speak by me. If you wish to speak, you must fill out a form, and the link to this form will be periodically placed in the chat. Please enter your details into the form. When I call for comments, I will pause for 20 seconds to allow for completing the form. And when recognized, you will be allowed to speak. Make sure your microphone is ready to be turned on when speaking privileges are granted. Use the Zoom chat for any seconding of motions, and the hosts will monitor the chat for this. Please note that when you enter information into the Zoom chat, it only goes to the hosts. I am appointing Don King as parliamentarian and Kate Kozak as timekeeper. I would like to introduce the members of the 2022-2023 AMATYC Executive Board. Laura Watkins, myself as president, George Hurlbert as president-elect, Kate Kozak as past president, Barbara Steinhurst as treasurer, Nancy Rivers as secretary, AJ Stahalik as Northeast vice president, Dennis Ebersole as Mid-Atlantic vice president, Alvina Atkinson as Southeast vice president, Brandon Bartley as Midwest vice president, Dale Johansson as Central vice president, Shannon Ruth as Southwest vice president, and Eddie Churchian as West vice president. My sincere thanks to these board members and friends. Will Nancy Rivers please give the delegate count?
We have 98 delegates checked in at this time.
According to the AMATYC bylaws, a quorum is present when 25% of 145 delegates are present. That's 37, so we do have a quorum. The rules of conduct are found on page 26 of the delegate packet. All persons who wish to speak must submit their name, delegate type, and whether they wish to speak for a motion or pro, against a motion or con, or ask a procedure question such as call the question. I will recognize a delegate before the delegate may speak. The time limit for debate on a motion is 5 minutes, and that can be extended if needed. To simplify timing, we set an initial time limit of 2 minutes per speaker. If there is no objection, we will consider the rules of conduct to be approved. Please indicate an objection using the chat. There being no objection, the rules of conduct are approved. Returning to pages 1 and 2 of the 2023 Delegate Assembly agenda, the numbering of items after Roman numeral 8, which is labeled as reports, is incorrect. Please renumber the remaining items in the following manner. Old business should be Roman numeral 9. New business should be Roman numeral 10. Items for discussion should be Roman numeral 11. Announcements should be Roman numeral 12. And adjournment should be Roman numeral 13. Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda that is on pages 1 to 2 of the delegate packet? Please put any additions or corrections into the chat, and this information will go directly to the hosts. Okay, hearing no further additions or corrections, if there is no objection, we will hearing no objection, no, back up. Hearing no further additions or corrections, if there is no objection, we will consider the agenda approved with those changes. If there is an objection, please put it in the chat. Okay, hearing no objection, we will consider the agenda approved with these changes. Moving on to item 6, the 2022 Delegate Assembly minutes. This is an information item. I am reporting that the minutes of the 2022 Virtual Delegate Assembly have been reviewed, corrected, and approved by the 2022 Delegate Assembly Minutes Approval Committee, chaired by Dale Johansson. The minutes can be found beginning on page 19 through page 24 in your packet. Thank you to Dale and the committee members for doing this important work. Moving on to page 27 of your packet is information about the Delegate Assembly Minutes Approval Committee, with a motion to approve the committee on pages 28 and 29. As a result of nominations forwarded to me by the regional vice presidents, the president is recommending the following members of the 2023 Delegate Assembly Minutes Approval Committee for this meeting. Chair, AJ Stahelic, Northwest VP. State Delegate, Carol Holwab. Affiliate Delegate, Dustin Walsh. Affiliate President, Tricia White. AMATYC Past President, Nancy Sattler. And Nancy Rivers, AMATYC Secretary, will serve in an ex officio capacity. If there is no objection, we will consider the motion to approve the Delegate Assembly Minutes Approval Committee approved. Please place any objections in the chat. Hearing no objection, the Delegate Assembly Minutes Approval Committee is approved as presented. I want to thank all of the delegates who volunteered to serve on this committee, whether or not they were selected for this position, as well as thank AJ Stahelic and Nancy Rivers for their efforts in this regard. Moving on to pages 30 and 31 of the delegate packet, I am pleased to report that the total registration at the conference was 730 attendees and 55 guests for a total of 785 individuals. Are there any questions for the president? Please put your details in the form provided. Not seeing any questions, I will thank you for your attention, and we'll move on to the treasurer's report on pages 32 through 38. Are there any questions for Treasurer Barbara Steinhurst? Please put your details in the form provided. Not seeing any questions for the treasurer. I want to thank you, Madam Treasurer, for your efforts on behalf of our organization. Moving on to pages 39 and 40, we find the AMATYC Foundations report. Are there any questions on the foundation report for past president Kate Kozak? Please put your details in the form provided in the chat. Not seeing any questions, I want to thank you, Madam Past President. On pages 41 through 59 are the strategies identified by the AMATYC executive boards to address the priorities that have been outlined in the 2018 through 2023 strategic plan. On pages 60 through 62 is the 2024 through 2029 AMATYC strategic plan, along with an updated mission, vision, and core values approved by the 2022-2023 Executive Board. Are there any questions for President-elect George Hurlburt on the strategic planning report? Please put your details in the form provided. Not seeing any questions, I want to thank you, Mr. President-elect. Next, moving on to page 63, we have the conference site selection report. There was a site selection in 2022, and we did announce that at the previous delegate assembly, but we had not yet concluded negotiations. We are pleased to announce that due to the relocating of the 2026 AMATYC annual conference, we will be holding that conference in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Are there any questions for President-elect George Hurlburt on the site selection report? Please provide your details in the form provided. Not seeing any questions, I want to thank you, Mr. President-elect, for your work in this area. Moving on to some old business. During the 2021 Delegate Assembly, the delegates approved the position statement titled Initial Placement of Student into the Mathematics Curriculum. The delegates indicated at that time that the position statement should be referred back to the Placement and Assessment ANET for additional refining and the inclusion of references that support our espoused position. The ANET is continuing to work on the position statement and is following the standard position statement timeline. There is no further report at this time. Okay, as we move into new business, I want to remind you of the rules of conduct on page 26. All persons who speak must submit their name, delegate type, and if you're speaking pro, con, or a process comment, into the form provided in the chat. We will alternate pro and con speakers if there are different viewpoints. Otherwise, speakers will be recognized until all speakers have had a chance to speak. No speaker may speak to a motion more than 2 times. Initially, there will be a 5-minute limit on debate that can be changed by the chair or by a vote of the body. I invite Julie Phelps, Chair of the Standards Committee, to place the motion on pages 64 through 72 on the floor to approve the updates to the AMATYC standards for content. Julie.
I would like to make the motion that the AMATYC Delegate Assembly approve the updates for the standards for content.
Since this motion comes from a committee, it is not necessary to have a second. Madam Chair, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, as you know, the standards team does regular reviews and continuous updates to the AMATYC standards, and we do this to align with the current trends of today. And we'd like to continue moving forward.
Okay. So if there are anyone who wants to speak con to this motion, that speaker is next, and then we will alternate between pro and con. Please put your details into the form in the chat, and we'll go ahead and pause for about 30 seconds so those that wish to speak to the motion can. Not hearing anyone wishes to speak con to the pro or con to this motion, George. Are we good?
Nobody has requested to speak.
Okay. All right. Can you go ahead and open the poll so that we may vote on this motion? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you for your attention on this important matter. Moving on, I invite Julie Phelps, Chair of the Standards Committee, to place the motion on pages 73 through 82 on the floor to approve the updates to the AMATYC standards for intellectual development. Julie.
That is indeed my motion to approve the AMATYC Delegate Assembly approves the updates to the standards for intellectual development.
Thank you. Since this motion comes from a committee, it is not necessary to have a second. Madam Chair, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I would like to say exactly the same thing I did before, and also thank everybody who's contributed to all of these updates and continuous updates.
Thank you to everyone who's contributed. Yes. If there is a con speaker, that speaker is next. We alternate pro and con. Please put your name and details into the form in the chat. We will pause for about 30 seconds to allow you to do so. Okay, and just double checking, George, did anyone request to speak?
There are no such requests.
Okay, all right, will you go ahead and open the poll so that the delegates may vote? Okay, the motion has passed. Thank you. Moving on, I invite Julie Phelps, Chair of the Standards Committee, to place the motion on pages 83 through 95 on the floor to approve the updates to the AMATYC standards for pedagogy. Julie?
That is my motion that the Delegate Assembly approve the updates to the standards for pedagogy.
Since this motion comes from a committee, it is not necessary to have a second. Madam Chair, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Again, I want to thank everybody who put all the work in on this and continue to move forward. And I'm looking forward to new ones in the future on this same topic, continuing.
Okay, thank you. If there is a con speaker, that speaker is next, and we alternate between pro and con. Please put your details into the form in the chat. We will pause for 30 seconds so that people may put their information in the form if they wish to speak to the motion. George, just confirming that nobody wishes to speak to the motion.
There are no requests to speak.
Thank you. Please open the poll so that the delegates may vote. The motion passes. I want to thank Julie and the Standards Committee, as well as those who helped draft the updates to these standards for all of their hard work. I would also like to thank those who attended the forums on these updates and provided feedback through the forums, as that was very useful in refining AMATYC's documents. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Yeah. At this point, I invite members of the Delegate Assembly wishing to bring forward items for discussion to put your details in the form provided in the chat. We will pause for 30 seconds so that you may do so. George, do we have any delegates who would like to speak?
Letting my screen refresh one more time.
Okay,
No, there are no requests to speak.
okay, thank you. Oh,
I
Nancy?
changed my mind. Some just came in.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, George.
Sean Sanders from OCMA, please.
Go ahead and speak, Sean.
Hi, delegates. Thank you, Madam President and Mr. President-elect. Just a question for consideration for the delegates for future years. I'm not entirely sure how best to suggest this, but I was talking with the Northeast Vice President, AJ Stahelik, and we were discussing the possibility of offering discounts for lifetime memberships for those who have been members in good standing for many years. So sort of applying past dues for memberships in consecutive back-to-back years as a way to encourage and facilitate delegates or AMATYC members to purchase lifetime memberships.
Thank you for that suggestion, Sean. I've got it written down and we will discuss that in the future. Thank you. Anyone else, George?
Yes. Helen Byrne, ANET Chair for the Mathematics Pathway, please.
Helen, please speak.
Thank you. I wanted to, as the prior speaker, just bring up something for potential discussion that so many of our members are encountering institutional challenges with talking about equity in mathematics within their institutions within the state. And so I would like the board to discuss whether it's appropriate for them to make a statement about this, or potentially one might be in the works. That's all. Thanks.
You know, Helen, if you could drop a chat to myself or to George, just providing a little bit more context for that, that would be extremely helpful, okay?
Sure.
Thank you for the suggestion. George, anyone else wish to speak?
There are no further requests.
Thank you to the delegates who spoke. So I do have a few announcements. At the conference, Judy Atkinson and April Crenshaw were winners of the Teaching Excellence Award. The members of the 2024-2025 nominating committee are Northeast, Vera Hu, Mid-Atlantic Representative Chris Ward, Southeast Representative Caroline Sampson, Midwest Representative Carol Hannas, Central Representative Curtis Mitchell, Southwest Representative Emily Thomason, Northwest Representative Sandra Wildfuhr, West Representative Ben Moulton, at-large Barbara Lethrer, at-large Representative Dave Tanner, at-large Representative Christine Mirbaha, at-large Representative Oscar Villalobos, and the chair is Laura Watkins. I'm going to pause there in my announcements because we did get another request to speak from Nancy Sattler. Nan, go ahead and speak.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to address Helen's comment about equity.
Okay.
There have been quite a few people who have been working on an additional chapter to impact, which deals with equity, and the board will look at that chapter at the strategic planning session that they have in January, and hopefully will approve the concept, and then we will have a first hearing. So we do recognize the importance of equity, and I hope you will all take the time to look at that chapter when it becomes available and give your input. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Helen sent me a chat and I'm just trying to grab the text while it's there. So hold on just a second. Of course, I didn't have Word open or whatever, so. All right. Okay, so back to the announcements. I had shared the nominating committee. So the members of the 2025 Teaching Excellence Award Committee are President-elect Eddie Churchian, Chair, Northeast Representative Bridget Dart, Mid-Atlantic Representative Carol Howald, Southeast Representative April Crenshaw, Midwest Representative Paul McCombs, Central Representative Tricia White, Southwest Representative Katerina Vishnikova, Northwest Representative Vicky Maurer, West Representative Tan Nguyen, and the adjunct representative is yet to be appointed. I would like to thank those who volunteered to serve on these important committees, whether or not they were actually selected to serve on those committees. I would like to once again take this opportunity to recognize and thank the local events coordinator for the Omaha Conference, Amanda Olson, and her local team for all the work they've performed for the conference. Thanks also to Tori Suski and the rest of the conference committee for their year-long commitment and great work in bringing us the wonderful conference in Omaha. I would also like to thank the conference presenters and attendees for a wonderful conference. And again, I want to thank you, the AMATYC delegates, for your participation in this delegate assembly. So looking forward, I would like to introduce the new board, the 2024-2025 AMATYC Executive Board. George Hurlbert will be serving as president, with Eddie Churchian as president-elect, Laura Watkins as past president, Kyle Kundamal as treasurer, Jonathan Weisbrod as secretary, AJ Stahalik as Northeast vice president, Dennis Ebersol as Mid-Atlantic vice president, Alvina Atkinson as Southeast vice president, Brandon Bartley as Midwest vice president, Dale Johansson as Central vice president, Jennifer Travis as Southwest Vice President, Jessica Bernards as Northwest Vice President, and Lindsay Gerber as West Vice President. Until the 2024 Virtual Delegate Assembly in conjunction with the AMATYC Conference in Atlanta, there being no further business, the 2023 Virtual Delegate Assembly is adjourned. Thank you for joining us today.